The uncertain future of jet fuel. Hello, lovely YouTube family. Welcome back to Nano Tins. In today's video, we're going to talk about the uncertain future of jet fuel. Before we start, I would want you to hit that red subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our videos. As air travel picks up, it is critical that the aviation industry supports the net zero transition. Sustainable aviation fuel (SAF), fuel made from the biogenic feedstocks such as waste cooking oil, architectural residues, and municipal waste, will play a key role. The World Economic Forum's Clean Skies for Tomorrow initiative created a new certificate system to enable customers to take ownership of their emissions reduction goals. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a drastic reduction in air travel, leaving many airlines facing an uncertain future. It might be tempting to assume that once air travel resumes, it would be business as usual as the airline industry focuses on a return to profitability over commitments to achieve net zero emissions. But as Graziano Vititani, Chief Technology Officer at Airbus, recently stated, pursuing one of the expenses of the other is a false choice. At a pre-pandemic level, aviation was responsible for 2 to 3% of the overall global emissions. And current forecasts from the International Air Transport Association (IATA) anticipate significant growth in air travel through the 2020s. In addition, as the world looks to build back better, a growing proportion of the airline passengers will be millennials who are likely to book with sustainable brands and which their values align. To drive a sustainable long-term recovery in the aviation industry, facilitating the transition to net zero flying by the middle of the century remains a priority across aviation's value chain. Aviation net zero CO2 emissions by 2050 will not only help create an environmentally sustainable future, but also ensure a financially resilient and competitive aviation industry as a whole. How to achieve net zero flying. The use of sustainable aviation fuel (SAF), fuel either made from biogenic feedstocks such as waste cooking oil, agriculture residues, and municipal waste, or through next-generation SAF technologies such as power-to-liquid from recycled CO2 and carbon capture technologies, will play an indispensable part in achieving this transition. SAF is especially relevant for addressing carbon emissions from long-haul flights and has a distinct financial advantage of not requiring any major new equipment or infrastructure investment. Since it can be blended by conventional jet fuel, given the long lead time for new propulsion technologies like hydrogen and electric to come to market, SAF is a way to make substantial progress on net zero immediately for both long and short haul aviation. SAF that is currently commercially available can reduce GHG emissions by up to 80% on life cycle emissions basis as compared to fossil fuels, offering airlines a way to become greener while continuing to fly. The problem of wider adoption is twofold. The cost of current limited supply of SAF. Today's commercial production of SAF is only approximately 0.05% of the total EU jet fuel consumption, and the current pace of growth is nowhere near where it should be to meet the global climate objectives. To help support the development and use of SAF, the World Economic Forum's Clean Skies for Tomorrow (CST) initiative created the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Certificate (SAFC) system to serve as an accounting tool that will allow SAF emissions reductions to be claimed by the traveler if they cover the higher cost of the fuel. In other words, corporations will be able to pay extra for sustainable aviation fuel certificates against their chosen routes, boosting demand for SAF and unlocking additional funding sources to stimulate this nascent industry. Instead of buying offsets, the SAFC framework provides customers with option to invest directly into SAF and furthermore receive recognition for this purchase to prove Scope 3 carbon abatement in their corporations. Commitments to net zero emissions. International aviation and shipping are unique in that they were excluded from the national carbon budgets under the Paris Agreement. Instead, parties are requested to work through the international regulators to reduce emissions from these sectors. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, traction was slow with governments and industry alike in the will or commitment to a net zero by 2050 target for the sector. That being said, the industry were already aligned around the environmental targets, including to achieve carbon neutral growth from 2020 and by 2050 to have halved carbon emissions from aviation against 2005 levels. In 2019, ambitious leaders in the sector joined the Clean Skies for Tomorrow coalition as a crucial mechanism through which actors across the value chain could collaborate to advance efforts towards net zero flying. Being an industry with low profit margins to begin with, it is promising to see airlines emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic with the recognition of the false choice between longer-term profitability and sustainability. Over the last year, we have witnessed this in the many commitments to net zero that have come to pass. In September 2020, One World, which includes American Airlines, British Airways, and the Cathay Pacific Airways, announced that all 13 of its members airlines have committed to the net zero emissions by 2050, becoming the first global airline alliance to unite behind the common target to achieve carbon neutrality. The airline said that they would develop individual approaches to reach the net zero target by 2050 through a mix of various initiatives such as efficiency measures, investments in SAF, and more fuel-efficient aircraft. reduction of waste and single-use plastics, and carbon offsets, among other measures. This was followed in February by Europe's aviation sector unveiling its flagship sustainability initiative Destination 2050, which lays out a route to reduce CO2 emissions from all flights within the departing from the EU by 45% by 2030, reaching net zero emissions by 2050. This document is backed by major European flight industry associations, covering airports, ACI Europe, airlines A4E, Aerospace and Defense ASD Europe, Air Traffic Control, CANSO, and regional airlines. In March 2021, Airlines for America, the industry trade organization representing the leading US airlines, announced the commitment of its member carriers to work across the aviation industry and with government leaders to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. In April, British Airways owner International Airlines Group announced the first SAF commitment to ensure SAF accounts for 10% of their fuel usage in 2030. They plan to achieve this by investing $400 million in SAF development in the next 20 years and purchasing 1 million tons of sustainable fuel on an annual basis. That's all for today. I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss any amazing video from us. Also, watch the next 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one.